Good morning. Welcome to another chapter of our read aloud in the Call of the Wild. Okay, this is chapter 3 and it's called The Law of Fang. And we've just finished chapter 1 and 2 where Buck was taken from his home and purchased by a guy who's from Canada. So we're going to see what happens now. Curly and Buck were taken below deck by Perrault and handed over to a large man called Francois. Both men were French-Canadian, tan and weathered from Klondike life. This was a new kind of man to Buck. He did not befriend them, but he grew to respect them. He soon learned that Perrault and Francois were fair men, but too wise in the way of dogs to be fooled by dogs. Between decks, Buck and Curly joined 2 other dogs. One was a big snow-white fellow from Spitzbergen who had been brought away by a whaling captain. He was friendly, but not to be trusted. Spitz, as he was called, would smile while he planned some sneaky trick, and he indeed proved himself to be sneaky. When he stole from Buck's food at the first meal, Buck sprang to punish him. Just then, the lash of Francois's whip sang through the air, reaching the white dog first. Buck observed that this, at least, was fair treatment from this man with the whip. The other dog was called Dave. He was a quiet fellow who wanted to be left alone. His eyes told the others that there would be trouble if he were bothered. When the boat rolled and pitched, Buck and Curly became half wild with fear, but Dave merely raised his head as though annoyed, glanced their way, and yawned, went to sleep again. At last, one morning, the boat came to a stop. The excitement of the change was in the air. Francois leashed the dogs and brought them on the deck. At the first step upon the cold deck, Buck's feet sank into a white mushy something very like mud. He sprang back with a snort. More of this white stuff was falling through the air. He shook himself, but more of it fell upon him. He sniffed it curiously, then licked up some on his tongue. It bit like fire, and the next instant was gone. This puzzled him. He tried it again, with the same results. The men laughed, and he felt ashamed. This was the first time he had ever seen snow. Buck's first day on the shore was like a nightmare. Every hour was filled with shock and surprise. No lazy, sunny life was this. Here there was no peace nor rest, nor a moment's safety, only confusion and danger. Buck knew he must stay alert. These dogs and men were not town dogs and men. They were savages, all of them. They knew no law but the law of club and fang. He had never seen dogs fight as these wolfish dogs fought. Buck soon learned an awful lesson about life in these wild parts, and Curly the Newfoundland was the victim. They were camped near the log store where Curly, in her friendly way, walked up to a husky dog the size of a full-grown wolf. With no warning, the husky leaped in like a flash, sank his teeth into Curly, then leapt back, almost in one motion. It was the wolf way of fighting, strike and leap away. Yet there was more to the wolf way than this. 30 or 40 huskies ran to the spot and surrounded the 2 dogs in a silent circle. Buck did not understand this silent circle, nor why they were licking their chops. Curly rushed to the husky, who struck again and leapt aside. He met her next rush with his chest and tumbled her off her feet. She never got back up. This was what the circle of huskies had waited for. They closed in upon her, snarling and yelping in a mass attack. Within seconds, Curly was dead. Buck was shocked by this sudden brutal act. He saw Spitz stick out his red tongue in a way he had of laughing. Then he saw Francois swinging an axe spring into the mess of dogs. 3 men with clubs were helping him to scatter them. It did not take long. The wild huskies were driven off, and there lay Curly, limp and lifeless in the snow. This memory often came back to Buck to trouble him in his sleep. So that was the way. No fair play. Once down, that was the end of you. Well, he would see to it that he never went down. Spitz stuck out his tongue and laughed again. From that moment, Buck hated him with a bitter and deep hatred. And that's chapter 3.